Welcome to the Radical Lifestyle Podcast, brought to you by Generation to Generation, where you will be inspired by the past, equipped for the present, and prepared for the future as we engage in conversations with people from around the world. Hello everyone, this is Andrew and Daphne from Generation to Generation, and our guest today is Annette Cartwright. Annette, for people that don't know who you are, can you just say a bit about where you're from and what you do?
Sure. Originally, I'm from the state of Maine, and I've been in the state of Tennessee for the last 23 years. I work for Katie's Kitchen making casseroles, and I have 4 children and a husband, which means I have 5 children. And my youngest one is 23. My oldest one is 39.
Okay, we're just thinking your husband might listen to this and then decide he needs an episode to defend himself.
He may do.
We can deal with that later.
Yeah, we can do that if he does. So, Annette, we asked you to come on because you have been on a journey that many parents listening may be on, and wondering if anybody else has walked that journey. It may be fathers, it may be mothers. And so we're going to focus on your eldest child, who is called?
Ryan.
Okay, so can you start sort of further back towards the beginning and start taking us on the journey of parenthood that you have had with Ryan?
Well, he was probably in junior high when this whole thing started. And they had a program in school that was called Dare to Say No Against Drugs. And he and his friends, it didn't scare, the police officers would come into the school and they do presentations to the children. He was not afraid of it, and neither were his friends. They were almost interested in seeing if that was true, what they were saying about the drugs. And that's kind of where the beginning of it started. And I will say this, though, that it seemed to me that it started first with alcohol, and then it moved on to the drug scene, which has been an ongoing problem until about 1.5 years ago.
So when you look back and that the police came in and it almost increased his interest, what do you think? I mean, obviously you only have your son's journey and his friend's journey, but what do you think about that? What do you think could have been done differently? Do you think anything should have been done differently?
You know, that age of kids is so tender anyway that sometimes, it just depends on the kid. I think that some children are absolutely petrified when they hear what can happen to you, the things that it causes and all. And other kids just don't seem to have that fear, and they want to experiment with it. So I don't know that they could really have done anything different. I was not in the classroom when they were given their presentation, and I honestly never did hear it. So that was kind of the beginning of it.
So you weren't in the classroom. Do you think that is a bit of a key, that maybe parents could have been invited in to hear what was going on?
Yeah, and I don't even know if that program still exists today, because Ryan is 39, and I'm sure that as the years have gone on, that if they do have the program still, that they've modified it throughout the years. But I think that would have been a great idea to have the parents come in and listen to it with the children.
So what did he get involved with? And how did you then discover what was going on?
Well, I'll tell you, he was a very quiet child, and he never gave me any trouble whatsoever. I had no idea. And I come from a background where my relatives like to do happy hour and that kind of thing. And I was shocked, because I thought I would be very keen to, somebody coming in after they'd had a few drinks and smelling it and how they act and that kind of thing. And I had no idea that it was going on, none whatsoever. His personality never changed. His demeanor never changed. I was totally in the dark.
Wow. So even looking back to that time, you're not going, if only I had noticed this or if I had noticed that. It just, life was carrying on as normal.
Yes. There was nothing that I could go back and look at and put my finger on and say, that's where it started.
So when did you get the first clue that something was going on?
I would say that he started to be rebellious in school, and I was getting phone calls from the teachers, and he was getting suspended, and that kind of thing was happening. And once again, that age, it's tumultuous anyway. And he, he was the type of kid that he has ADD, and children with ADD can't always see down the road. They live in the moment and they live in the day. And so punishing him long range was ineffective because he could live in the moment and he couldn't see the long range consequences of being grounded or whatever. So punishing him was very difficult. It was kind of like trying to reinvent the wheel every day to get him with something that meant a lot to him so that he could feel, the loss of whatever it was. If it was going to a dance, if it was going out with his friends or to a movie or whatever, I had to hit him with whatever the most important thing was at that point in time to for it to have any kind of an impact on him whatsoever. So he was really a difficult kid to discipline. It didn't, and when I did discipline him, he was the type that he got mad at me for disciplining him. So it was, I had to continually say, this is your fault. You're in this situation because you did this, and this is the consequence for what you did. And he would say, well, if you think that's going to make me stop, it's not. It just makes me mad. So that was kind of what I was up against with, yeah.
I just want to point out one thing for people who are listening from other nations. When you said you just had to hit him with whatever was at hand, you didn't mean hit him.
With whatever was around your hands.
I didn't mean physically hit him.
There's a brick, so I guess that's at hand.
Yeah. No, I didn't physically hit him. I probably should have, but I didn't.
I just want to pick that up for people from other countries who may not use that phrase, not just let it go by.
It's a good spot.
So now we have the situation where you're realizing that something is not right, but maybe you're not necessarily yet picking up the clue of what actually is going on behind the scenes, or did you?
No, I really didn't. His dad and I were divorced, and so I kind of blamed a lot of that rebellion on the fact that we were divorced. So, it was very subtle in my mind that I didn't really, and nobody else around me did either. Nobody ever came to me and said, I think Ryan's involved in something that, drugs or alcohol or whatever it might be. Nobody said that to me.
That can often be the case actually in a lot of areas in life actually, where there's an issue going on, even health. You might feel a pain or something and then you go, well, I don't want it to be that. So, but there are a lot of other circumstances or things going on around those issues that you go, it could be because of this. And so you go down a different track. That can be in a lot of different areas, but like you said, there's legitimate reasons why these things could have been happening, which then sort of masks the real issues which are going on.
Right. And I never really, thought that any of my children would be involved in anything like that ever. It never crossed my mind. We were, a solid family. We were, he was always very open and talked to me about a lot of things he was going through in his life. And he always had, because for the longest time, it was just the two of us. And then when he was about 11, Tim and I married. And then a year later, we had Sarah. So, we were always, and Tim was very good with Ryan. There wasn't, I just really didn't see the issue I didn't see drugs even in the realm of things being an issue.
I mean, that to me, not having walked that journey, it feels a very scary place to be potentially in. To looking back, not in the moment, and other parents is like, how are you going to pick that up? How are you going to know what's going on? How, do we just have to ride these things out and wait for the big bang? Or, I don't know. It feels like a very scary place to be.
It really is. Mm. Yeah. I mean, his friends that he hung around with were all good kids. They weren't in trouble, and they got involved in it too. But they seemed to outgrow it, so to speak. It didn't have the grasp on them that it did on him. And I don't know if it's because they were doing a different kind of drug, but everybody's drug of choice can be different. Some people are addicted to heroin, some people are addicted to cocaine, and Ryan's drug of choice was heroin, and that's probably the worst one because that's a mind-altering drug. And I'm not playing down the others either, because if your drug of choice is cocaine, that's every bit as real and has a hook in your jaw, just like heroin does. So it's not a good place.
So as you started to deal with some of these behavioral changes that were going on, how did you then eventually discover what it was that he was actually involved with? Did eventually he just confess to what was actually going on? What ended up happening?
Well, he was about 16 years old at this point, and he decided that he wasn't going to go to school anymore. And so he ran away from home, and he was gone for several days. And we told him, when we finally did get in touch with him, that if he wanted to come home, there were some things that he was going to have to do differently. And one of them was that he was going to have to get himself back in school. And if he didn't do that, then, or the few things that we said, the other things were like, take the trash out on Friday. And, they were just little chores that he would have to do. And anyway, he decided that that's not what he wanted to do. And he stayed gone. He would say things to me, like he would tell in third person, kind of other people that were doing it. But he wasn't doing it. And every parent wants to believe that their child is telling them the truth. And they're very manipulative. And and I wanted to believe that was so, that he was the exception to the rule. We'd always had a close relationship where he always could tell me things, and did. And sometimes he told me more things than I needed to know. And so I really, really wanted to believe that he was telling me the truth, and that this was going to be an adventure that would open his eyes, and he would probably be back home within a couple of weeks. And that never happened. He never did return home. So,
wow. I can't even begin to imagine. I mean, holding the line and saying this is what is required, and on the other hand having the panic and the fear that you want your child back home. How did you hold those two things together? Because many parents go into the enabling and it doesn't matter and come home anyway. How did you hold those two?
Well, I had 3 small children, and I could not subject them to what he was doing. And so that was part of the reason why it was a little easier, I guess, for me to do the tough love thing with him. And honestly, God just protected my heart through the whole thing, and I did not really lose sleep over it. I didn't. I worried about him, but I was not. I just did not go there in my mind. I just did not entertain those thoughts of what if this, what if that, oh my gosh, where is he? I had moments of that, but that wasn't the norm for me. It wasn't that I did that continually.
So that really reminds me of a scripture, take every thought captive. I should think that became a scripture that you had to live out almost moment by moment.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I can tell you that, as things progressed and he would call me and say, I'm really hungry, I don't have any money. There was enabling that went on. And there was a whole part of me that had guilt for his dad and I being divorced and that whole thing. And I felt responsible. So there was a whole guilt thing that was going on as well, that when he did call and say he needed, I would go. I would not give him money, but I did give him, I would go get him groceries and drop those off to him. And that's a form of enabling too, because if you don't have to worry about paying for your groceries, you got more money to put towards the drugs. And, he ended up being arrested a few times. And the first time it happened, our neighbor was a sheriff's deputy. And I called him and I told him what was going on. And I said, what do I do? Do I bail him out? Do I leave him in there? What do I do? And he said, he was in a pretty hardcore place. And he said, you need to get him out of there because he's really young and these guys do not play in there. So you need to get him out. So we did bail him out that time. And, he was offered several opportunities to get clean, through different programs that are here in the area. And he would start out and leave 2 days later or leave a day later. He never followed through with anything. And if I could tell any parents, give anyone advice on that, is as much as you want to help them and as much as you think that you're helping them and as much as you think your child is the exception to the rule, until they're ready and serious about getting clean, you are wasting your money and your time. No. Because a lot of them are doing it to stay out of jail, and a lot of them are doing it to get off the streets for a little while, but they really don't have any intention of staying clean.
Well, that is tough love to a parent.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. What was it that...
and you will hear things, they'll say things like, even if they've gone through the program, they'll say, oh, I'm in control and I'm going to go hang out with my friends who were the friends that they had prior to this. Mm-hmm. And, they're going to get right back into that same situation again, because it is a lifestyle change. You have to change your friends. You have to be committed to this, that this is not anything you want a part in your life anymore. And until, a lot of kids will come home and they'll say, oh, I'm going to go hang with so-and-so. I'm okay. I got this. and they don't. And what usually happens a lot of times is these kids have been off drugs for, a month or weeks, and then they fall and they go back to the drug dealer and they start taking the drugs at the same level they were taking when they went into rehab, and they can't handle it, and they end up dying of an overdose. So that's a real dangerous place, not to mention that a lot of these drug dealers are lacing the drugs with other things. Ryan, he almost lost his life twice, and the second time, the drugs he was getting were laced with horse tranquilizers. And he almost didn't make it. So, there's all that going on in the world too. So it's just a really, really dangerous place.
Mm. What was it that eventually got him to the point where he was willing to have the help and to really fight for himself?
Well, I'll tell you, not last summer, the summer before that, he called me and he said that if he didn't get out of the heat, he was going to die. And they'll tell you that too, that if this doesn't happen, and he told me he was going to detox because he didn't want to do this anymore. He didn't want to be out on the streets anymore. And when they detox, they get really, really sick. It's a really sad situation. And to try to do that and be on the streets, it's never going to happen. So I rented this hotel room, and he stayed there for 3 or 4 days. And I was thinking to myself, I'm going to go down there in the morning and I'm going to find him dead. I would go down every single day to check on him to make sure that, that he was okay. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to find him dead. And anyway, it started making me physically sick to the point where I was, sick. And I lost my voice because of it. And he said to me, what's wrong with your voice, Mom? And I said, Ryan, I can't do this anymore. I said, I have walked with you through this for years and years and years. And every time we get to this point, you say all the right things, and you're going to do this and you're going to do that. And it's all talk. And I can't do it anymore because now it's having a physical effect on me as well. And I said, so I hope that you continue to get yourself clean. And I hope that, that you will get yourself into a rehab situation, but I'm out of it as of this point in time. I said, I don't want you calling me. I don't want anything, any connection whatsoever until you're sober and you're clean. And I said, I just can't do it anymore. And I walked away from it. And then the following March, I got a phone call from him, and he said that the guy that was dealing the drugs was also holding him at gunpoint. And what they do is they'll fly a sign to try to raise money to get the drugs. And this guy was taking the money from him, and then he was just giving him enough of the drugs so that he wouldn't get sick. And he called me and he said, I'm trying to get myself into this rehab facility. And he said, but I'm in hell, Mom, and this guy is the devil. And he said, I do not want to live like this anymore. This is just horrible. And so he ended up going into rehab just before COVID hit. And he actually got out just right as COVID was hitting. And he's been clean ever since. So that, and like I said, everybody has a rock bottom, and some people's rock bottom is death, and other people learn their lesson way before they get to the point that he was at. And he, like I said, he'd overdosed a couple of times, and that wasn't his rock bottom, and you would have thought that would have been, and it wasn't. So Everybody's different.
What was it like for you when you had to say to him, I'm out, I'm done at this point, don't contact me again? Was that a real struggle, or was it ultimately that you realized if you didn't do that, this could end up far worse for him? Was that just such an overpowering feeling that it wasn't such a struggle for you to cut him like that?
I guess it was really a relief for me to let go, because you cannot, you as a mom, think that you can fix your children, and you cannot. And by the time I reached that point, and I was the one who was getting sick, it was, he was in his 30s. It's like, you are a grown man. You are streetwise. You know what to do. You know how to handle yourself. You've lived like this your whole adult life. And I need to get out of this because I'm not helping, and and it's killing me. And so I was relieved, actually, when I was sad, but I was relieved to get out of it.
So where is Ryan at today?
Well, today Ryan is in he went through the rehab process, and then he went to a house where men live that have gone through this process and stay clean. And he has a job, and they have I think there's 4 men that live in this house together. And it's owned by by a rehab facility, I believe. And they have rules that they have to maintain, and they have little meetings that they have once a week, and they have to have jobs because it costs them $100 a week to stay there, and they have to buy their own food. And it's really, it really has worked out well for him for the most part, to be there. And he has a girlfriend that's in the women's side of things too. And it's just been really wonderful to have my child back and to have a relationship with him. And his brothers and his sister are just absolutely thrilled to have him back as well. So it's been, and he will tell you that if it weren't for the Lord, that he wouldn't be where he is. He said that he prayed to God for the first time and said, please take these cravings away. And he doesn't have any desire. Before, he said, I was always trying to think of a way that I could do that and still do this. And he said, and now I don't want to have anything to do with it. And he has really blossomed. He asked Tim and I to buy him a Bible, and we did. And he's he's really done well for himself so far. And it's, you just take it a day at a time. Every day is a blessing that this is going in the right direction. And I will say to this too, there's a lot of power in a mom's prayers, and to never, ever give up and never stop praying for your children, even if the situation seems dire.
Well, we know some parents that have kids that are involved with some of these things. What advice would you give to parents to help them as they navigate this journey, that they they kind of don't lose their own minds in the process? What advice would you give to parents walking through this?
I would say that there are a lot of parent support groups out there that can help with that. And I would say to not be afraid to say no to your children, and don't let them control you. You control the situation. Because like I said before, they're very manipulative. And I would say, be in prayer all the time about them, that somebody, and it may not be you, and it wasn't me that intervened and actually got him into the rehab facility. It was a man who saw Ryan on the streets, and he took a shining to him because he reminded him of one of his children. And he was the one who worked with him to get him into the rehab facility this last time. So, just pray that somebody will enter their lives that can have an impact on them, and that, that they'll find their rock bottom really quickly, and won't be as long as it was for Ryan, that it will be a short period of time for them to come around and realize that it's not a life, it's an existence. And, and especially moms with girls, boys are tougher. And, there's a lot of things that can happen to girls out on the streets that would be even worse. So I would just say, don't let them manipulate you. Don't let them scare you. You keep being the parent, and put your foot down with things as hard as it is. There are things, those are the regrets that I have, is that I would have done it sooner. You got to let go and let God do what he has to do, and know that you've done all you can do to help, that you're there if they're serious about going into rehab, you take them and drop them off. If they're, you're there to help them any way you can, but you're not going to be somebody who is an enabler. And there's a very fine line between those two things.
Wow, Annette, what a journey of pain, and yet here we are in the moment of victory, and we pray that he will hold that place. Jesus will hold him in that place, and you as parents as well. And one thought I had as you were speaking was, when you went, you said, I can't do this anymore to him. It's a bit like when you've got the mask that drops down in the aeroplane. You have to put that on yourself first before you help someone else. And if as a parent you go under, you can't help your child. So self-care in this situation, I would think, was really, really, really important.
Yeah, and for people listening, if you are a parent or someone that knows someone who's dealing with these issues, then take the time to look at what the options are, what you can do to help them in that situation, and to help yourself. And if you're listening and you are struggling with these issues, then be proactive, be intentional in seeking help, go to someone, ask someone to help you, to intervene in your situation. Annette, thank you so much for taking the time to share the story with us, and hopefully people listening to this will be encouraged at the end to really be able to be more mindful of others that maybe are going through this, to be mindful of parents or people that have people that are going through this, to see how they could be more proactive in helping and being some kind of support network for other people. Did you want to say something else?
Yes, I did want to say, for people who don't have children that are going through this, that just because you see somebody on the streets that is panhandling, so to speak, they're not bad people. They have just gotten themselves in a situation that is totally controlling them, and to be your nose up at them, don't, just honor them as people, even though they're lost. Honor them as lost people.
Yeah.
Thank you, Annette. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for your vulnerability, Annette. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If it inspired you, please rate us and subscribe on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or another podcast platform.